I thought I'd just kind of jump on this evening and do a live video. And what I was just going to do this evening is kind of share the system that I follow when it comes to our direct to vendor meetings with landlords. So it's a system that I kind of picked up from a sales book actually that I read maybe about 9 months ago. And why I kind of really like the system is that it was kind of provided a really clear structure, a really clear format of what you can do in meetings with landlords, anyone really, if you're trying to sell a particular service. And I found it very useful for me because it was very clear, very concise. It meant there was less waffle in the meeting, and it just also meant that we was able to kind of structure how we wanted the meeting to go. So I thought I would just kind of quickly share the 6-step approach from this sales book. So the first point on this particular system is called bond. So what this is all about really is about kind of building rapport with the landlord. So when we arrive at the property and we're kind of going around the property and we are kind of reviewing the rooms, measuring the rooms, at the same time what we're trying to do is build rapport with the landlord. So for example, we may be just trying to find out a little bit more about what they do for a living, if they are local to the area, what their particular interests are, how long they've been a landlord for. And also at the same time, we would be providing a similar sort of information about ourselves. And that's really important because ultimately what we're trying to do is build up a level of trust with ourselves and the landlord. We want to know that this is a landlord that we are happy to work with on a long-term agreement, and we also want to kind of make sure the landlord feels comfortable in working with us. So it's all about building up that rapport, building up relationships, building that trust. So from there we would move into the second stage, which is called evaluate. And at this stage what we're doing is just kind of evaluating more of the specifics about the property. Now some of this information we may have picked up on the phone when we had our initial conversation on the phone with the landlord. But what we're still trying to do in this evaluate stage is to see if there's anything that we missed from that initial telephone call, and also kind of dot the I's and cross the T's. So some of the things that we may ask in the evaluate stage is just finding out a little bit more specific, such as how long has the property been empty for? What has been the kind of the tenant type in the property? Has the landlord been self-managing? Has a letting agent been looking after it? How long they've had the property for? Do they have any other properties? So these are kind of some of the things that we're trying to establish in the evaluate stage. From there, we move into the unearth stage. And what this basically is all about is kind of unearthing the problems or the challenges that the landlord may have. And we have to think that ultimately the landlord has contacted us. They've received one of our letters, they've contacted us. So most likely there is some sort of challenge, some sort of problem that the landlord may have. So it's really up to us to try to unearth those particular problems, those particular challenges in the meeting. So some of the things that may arise is potentially they're concerned about void periods. Maybe the property's been empty for quite a while. Maybe it's a thing that they've had bad relationships with letting agents in the past. Maybe they don't want to kind of pay any fees to a letting agent. Maybe they're after kind of a refurbishment of the property. But as I said, there's generally going to be probably something that they are having a problem with, something that they're having challenges with, and that is why they contacted you. And it's about kind of working out how can I unearth those particular problems, those challenges. And that's really important before you move into kind of the next phase, which is about solutions. So in the solutions phase, what we kind of usually do at that point, we kind of take out our kind of a folder. And in that folder, kind of at the start of it, we've got some certificates of some of the organizations that we're with. So, for example, the RLA, the ICO, the PRS. So really, we don't really kind of go into those certificates, but they can see it as we're going through the folder, which just kind of shows them a level of credibility. Or we're trying to show them, a level of credibility that we have. Once we go through the folder, we would also get to our benefits page. And what that is just kind of an A4 page with bullet points with kind of clear and concise bullet points of our solutions. And what we would then do is go through all of the solutions that our service provides. And what we would do specifically is hone in on the solutions that are relevant to the problems and challenges that we've unearthed in the previous stage. So for example, if we've unearthed that their biggest challenge is void periods, we could hone in on the solution, which is we can provide guaranteed rent regardless of whether the property is empty or not. One of the other particular challenges, that's my wife in the background there. So one of the other challenges that we can have ultimately is potentially the landlord may say that they don't want to pay kind of fees to the letting agent. So one of the solutions to that is, well, you would be able to kind of use our service and we wouldn't charge you any fees. So they're kind of the things that we would hone in on the solution stage. From there, we would move into the feedback stage. So in the feedback, it's kind of just clarifying with the landlord is, have we covered all of their concerns? What are their initial thoughts about our service? And hopefully that's generally positive. And if there are any objections, that's fine. We would then try and kind of deal with those objections there and then before we kind of get into the numbers. So the feedback is kind of trying to make sure that we're in a position where we've kind of addressed everything that we needed to address before we go into the specifics of the numbers. So it's kind of just that opportunity for us again to reiterate all of the benefits that we can provide to the landlord. From there, from the feedback stage, the final stage is kind of the economics. And in that stage is where we specifically go into the numbers. So what we would usually do at that point is provide them kind of a market kind of comparison, which I'm pretty sure is on the USB that Progressive provides, which is kind of just a comparison table with showing kind of them self-managing, a letting agent managing, and then the benefits of our particular service. And ultimately what that table would do is highlight that our service is more beneficial to the landlord than them self-managing it or them using a letting agent. So once we showed them that market comparison, we would then kind of take out the landlord calculator, which is ultimately just an Excel spreadsheet. Where what we're trying to do at the end of that spreadsheet is letting the landlord see what their actual net pay is. So at the top of the spreadsheet, it will kind of show what their gross rental income is. So let's say that's 1,400. Then what the calculator will do will kind of minus the typical deductions that they would typically see. So maybe kind of the agent fees, maybe the initial fees with an agent, maintenance costs, void periods. So potentially by the time all of those numbers are inputted, at the bottom of the calculator will probably show that what their net pay is. So maybe their gross was 1,400, but actually their net pay after all of those deductions is about £900. So what we can then kind of show the landlord, it's really useful because they can visualize that, and we can kind of show them that actually, yes, your gross was this, but your net is this. And actually after 3 years with our service, you will probably end up taking home more than what your actual expected net pay is at the end of the 3-year period. So it's really fantastic that we can kind of show kind of a visualization of that at the end of the pitch. And then kind of once we've got to that stage, then we'll be able to kind of use their net pay. And also we'll print off some comparables, which I have not mentioned, of similar properties in the area. And usually we'd have printed off comparables of properties that are kind of slightly lower in price than maybe what this particular landlord is looking for. So we can show them the comparables, show them the net pay at the end of the calculator, and use that to provide an offer to the landlord. So that's kind of the six-step approach that we use in kind of our meetings. And as I said, we found it very useful, so someone else may find it quite beneficial. So as I said, those steps are bond, evaluate, unearth, solutions, feedback, and economics. So I hope you guys found that useful. If anyone's got any questions, please feel free to kind of comment below. All right, thanks everyone.
Beckley Rose Property Solutions, the master key of property management.